Hi, and welcome to Gaetana Nesbit's Chapter 5 assignment for EDSP 425. Let's just jump in. So first is, what is a norm reference assessment? A norm reference assessment is a test that allows teachers to compare student performances with other student performances around the same age and grade level. So some advantages of using this in schools is you can help students early and see whether or not they need special education recommendations or not. And that's kind of why it's also essential to a SPED eval, is it shows where students at academically, which is part of their entire evaluation to see whether or not a student should be in special education or not. Going on to the next slide, are what are some strategies to establish a positive testing environment? First would be familiar people and area, meaning that the student might know who the test taker is and feels comfortable around them, as well as in a spot they feel comfortable in so they can put their best foot forward, because the point in the evaluation is to make sure a student shows you the best of their abilities, because it honestly is part of deciding whether or not they need special education or not. Another thing that's super helpful for creating a positive testing environment is the background of the student. I think you should know that academically and personally. So maybe academically, whoever's giving the test observes the student for a couple days so they know how the student acts, so they can help the student perform to the best of their abilities. And then I also think personally you should know the student. Like if you know they have a lot of anxiety, maybe have somebody in the room that makes them more comfortable so they can actually perform the test to the best of their abilities. Next would be following all directions procedures correctly as the test taker. I hate it personally when I have to redo something because it's somebody else's fault. Why would you want to make a kid redo the entire test because you forgot a certain direction or procedure for it? Next would be do not over test the student. So nobody does well on something when they're exhausted and they're tired and they're over it. So making sure that also connects back to knowing them academically in their background is signs like, oh, they're tired, let's give them a break so they can actually do the best that they can. And lastly, maybe for younger students, rewards after testing, maybe like a piece of candy, extra recess, so they can put their best foot forward. That can backfire and make maybe a student hustle through it so you don't get their best test, but I think you could have other things in place because you know that's going to happen, so maybe you won't use that. Going to the next slide is explaining Basal and Ceiling, and include information about why you use them and why they're important when delivering a norm reference assessment. So to explain this, I took the exact photo from Mr. Sheaf's PowerPoint because I think it's brilliant and it really helped me understand what it is. So I'm using it to show in my PowerPoint what it is. So Basal, what that is it's how many questions a student got right in a row from their starting point. And if they can get those certain amount of questions right in a row, they know everything from that point behind it. So meaning if you look at the circle in yellow, it has 4 ones. So from that point, because of this test, you needed 4 questions right to prove that you know it. So anything from grade level 1 and back, where they're going to assume the student knows so they don't get tested on easy stuff they already know. Ceiling is the opposite. So if a student gets, instead of these 4 ones, they get 4 zeros, which means the student cannot answer those questions. So that means at the end of the test, when they get the 4 zeros, because this test says 4 questions wrong, you can stop the test. The student can't answer from this grade point on, the test is over, and that's as high as they can go. Key here being whatever amount of questions right or wrong the test says is what you go off of. So these are used in testing, like I was explaining, to start a test and stop a test so you don't, 1, give the student too many easy questions and they get bored and don't want to do it anymore and you overtest the student, and 2, stopping the test when the questions get too hard so you don't over frustrate the student and they don't give you the best that they can for the test. Is why we use it. And it's also why the importance of them on the norm reference test is so the student can put their best foot forward of not too easy, not too hard, just where you need them to be for the test. So next is explaining the difference between encouraging students to respond and confirming and correcting student responses. Why one's okay and why one's not, and examples. So first, encouraging students to respond. Examples of that would be, give me your best answer, you got this, and keeping your same facial expressions the entire time as well. So the difference being is confirming and correcting student responses would be saying to a student, good answer, correct, or you smile when they get the answer wrong and you don't do anything when they get their answer not correct, which gives a student or anybody who can read body language or voices, oh, I got it wrong, I'm going to try again. And they go, oh, not that answer, and they fix it. I learned that the hard way between the difference of these two when I was giving my mom's students tests. And I just tell them, give me your best answer, you got this, which is encourage students to respond. My problem is every time they got one right, I smiled. I didn't pick up on that until the end, and we had to redo all the tests to the students because when I didn't smile, the kids would change their answer. Which means you don't do confirming and correcting student responses. That one's the not okay one over the other. And it's not okay because it's kind of like a form of cheating sometimes without you realizing it. So in the end, thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope I answered everything really well. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.